I love all the thuds. Ta-tunk, ta-tunk.
I love this song, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Jeremy's song.
It's great.
One touch would set me trembling and start my heart to beat. Had my heart an unclipped wing, your smile would start it fluttering. Though I was
So cool. Great song. From the record, right?
Yeah, Songs of Rebirth,
Yeah.
Jeremy's most recent album. Which is
Well,
fitting too. That's where we last saw each other, right? The
yeah.
CD release of that in LA. That's cool.
Sam first. Um, so first of all, an introduction is in order. Ladies and gentlemen, Nancy Harms,
Hi.
coming live from Minneapolis, right?
Minnesota, yeah.
Oh, Minnesota.
Smaller town, but yeah.
So, wow. Well, we're both kind of just getting started in the day.
Yeah. And it's earlier for you, so I don't know what that says about me.
Yeah, I know.
Never been a
Well,
morning person thus far.
yeah, I mean, I can do it, but it's not my favorite. You know, I can't wake up really early. I don't know if as I get older that'll happen or not, you know, because that seems to happen for people, but
Yeah,
maybe.
my dad switched from night person to morning person, so
Really.
it happens.
Well, I remember this flute player, Sam Most. He was never around. I think he probably stayed awake, you know, very late. He was never up and about until like 2 in the afternoon. And one time I was in Ireland and I was staying at the home of a flute player, and I said, "Oh, let's call Sam Most." And he said, "Really? Okay." And it was like 11 or something, you know, here. And he was like, "Oh, no, we can't call that early." And I'm like, "It's 11 o'clock. It's not that early." Anyway, Sam was asleep. So, okay, well,
Yeah.
the jazz people.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think for some people there's something more compelling about the late night, or in some people there's more compelling about the morning. I think I don't have to do it quite as much as I used to. Before I felt super compelled, but I sort of realized that I was staying awake because like the psychic energy, the people's thoughts, blah, 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 is quieter. So to end my day with that more quiet space, that's what I think I really liked, was having that time of just, whew, because at the time I didn't have as many boundaries as how to not take all that in. I took everything in as my own, you know. So that's such a beauty of the middle of the night, is all of a sudden you get this quiet, especially in New York, right? I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't want to go to sleep. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see where to begin. Well, first of all, let's just begin with how you met, how you hooked up with Jeremy to make music and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. He had this idea in his head of a certain kind of project, and he was kind of basing it on a sound. So he didn't know the exact sound, but kind of in the ballpark, right? And he wanted to do, I think, a woodwind and piano and voice, very, you know, a small, intimate kind of a thing. And he had met Lucas through a mutual friend, and they actually watched basketball games or something together first. And then they kept hearing about each other's musicality, and finally somehow he heard Lucas's music. I think that was before me. And then I moved to New York in 2010, and I had met briefly this bass player from Minneapolis. They said, "Oh, you know, people introduce you to people when you're going to move, right?" And so I didn't know him very well, but I asked him to play, and then had asked for a recommendation of somebody who would take good care of a new a new singer in Minneapolis and not be like too diva-ish or whatever, you know, like it's someone who's really an empathetic musician. And the guy's like, "Oh, you got to go with Jeremy." So, you know, we had a pretty good gig. I was a bit like probably just overwhelmed and like, whoa, what is happening? But I gave him my CD, and he had it in his car, and he kept listening, and he's like, "Actually, this is what I'm looking for. This is the sound I'm looking for." And I love to tell stories in, you know, when I sing.
Yeah.
And so that's really what he was looking for too, because he was going to do he does a lot of like literary stuff for his lyrics. He sort of adapts things. That was, I think he got the master's in English Lit, and that was his thesis or whatever you have to do for that, where it was about modifying poems or literature uh, for to make great lyrics, whatever. So yeah, so it just ended up that's how he had discovered me, and he's like, all right, I found my two. Let's start this thing. And yeah, he was kind of studying with Fred Hirsch at the time, and Fred came in and gave us some his thoughts on different things, and that sort of sculpted some stuff. That's when we added the bass clarinet that Lucas was just playing. He didn't play that before then. Yeah, and we've done a ton of house concerts around the world, which has been such a great gift for me in exploring, being exposed, having all that space and telling a story to these people so close to you, right? Staring at your eyebrow sweat, whatever. Like, they're right there in front of you.
I've
Very
seen some
intimate.
of your videos of the house concerts. It's very close. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of almost a strange thing at first to be like, do I look people in the eye? And they're like, whoa, like when when they're that close, they feel on the spot.
That's
So
an interesting, actually, aspect of singing, isn't it? Like
yeah,
looking people in the eye or not. But yeah, there's like a whole kind of, when I
people have
think back
strong
about it.
opinions.
Yeah, and also I think it's, for me personally, I don't know about you, but over my career, it's changed. You know, periods of time I really liked looking at people in the eye, and I felt really comfortable. Then other periods I didn't. I wanted to kind of look away and then look back, and then there's the really incredibly sad songs that if you do look somebody in the eye who you know, then you can, start crying. There's a whole bunch of different aspects to it, right?
Yeah, I for me it comes a lot to down to what type of song it is. If it's sort of just like a fun swinging one, like then like looking around, it's very entertaining,
Mm.
right? But if there's something where I really have want to create like a space, then I close my eyes a lot more because looking at people, then I might start to take in their feelings about the day that they had or whatever, again, the empathetic thing. And so it's like, nope, I got to create a world for them to come into. I'm not like, that's what they came here for. And also, too, like more recently, it's been a lot about uh, doing it for joy, right? Like, so the more I'm enjoying it, the more I'm just in great joy surrounded in it, that the more people enjoy it. I've learned that. I used to think I was trying to figure out what they wanted. And I
Uh-huh.
was sort of putting my energy out there, and I would leave gigs sometimes being really drained or sad, even because I was like trying to make it an exchange. And then that required them to give me something back for me to feel okay. So
Yeah.
now it's more about I'm going to go and enjoy this and really live in the music. And when I've done that, I felt like it's selfish at first, but people come up and they have even a deeper experience because I've gone into uh, the music to myself and into the music more rather than asking for some sort of validation or certain kind of response from them, right? They're given a
Yeah.
bit more freedom to receive it too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many thoughts on that. Yeah. Uh, we were talking a little bit, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about talking a spiritual. Little bit, and I'm Oops, sure we'll sorry. talk a Hold on lot one more. Second.
You wanted to really make that point, say it again.
I was trying to cut off some people because there's some there's some weird stuff going on here on YouTube, and let me just like,
Trolls.
yeah, it's just not good, and we don't want that. Okay, good. So those are gone. All right, I feel
Bye,
better.
trolls. Go
Really?
back to your bridges.
Um, yeah. Well, let's see. We were talking before we got on about how uh, the the career, as we start and we're young people, And we have these images in mind of, perhaps getting famous or doing exceptionally well or working with people, particular people. And then as time goes on, and of course it doesn't happen for everybody, but for those of us who think like this, that kind of drops away and other things come in to being a priority. And as you were saying, the pandemic helped you to do that. And yeah, with all the bad things that happened, the pandemic was a blessing in that way. It just stopped the world, and we had to rethink and notice, instead of going on that treadmill. Um, can you, I know this is not a direct question, but can you chat a little bit about that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a huge reset button. And in some ways, I kind of felt like the fact that things stopped gave me an excuse to let go of some of the things I had wanted to for a while, or I could feel were sort of uh, like not a fit anymore, and it's not about at all that anything was a mistake. There was such beauty in all the different things I did and exploring what was possible, to do in New York. Um, but it's just like I got more clarity that I just wanted to live in joy, and kind of got more clarity that a lot of those things that looked great on the resume, some of them were really beautiful in their own way too, but um, there was a lot of egoic highs involved in it. And coming from a small town, and it was really fascinating to explore what was possible. And I got to play with amazing musicians and go to different cities and such like that. Not that I'm not going to do those anymore, but the way I view what I want to do or as success is so different. It just because I am an empath, or whatever you want to say, that sensitive to different things, it just got to be things got to be kind of overwhelming. And what I've learned with different things like anxiety or depression or uh, yeah, things like that, things just not kind of feeling right, is that they are messages. And so the pandemic with this pause was like a great time to look at all those messages and say, what is this trying to tell me? It's such a strange thing how people kind of can perceive anxiety or depression as something's wrong with that person. Like we're getting rid of some old stigmas and such, but I am so solid in believing that they're just messages from your soul, from the truth of you, whatever people want to call it, that no, this way, this is what's going to make you happy. And yes, sometimes you have to let go of things that your ego was super excited to. This is what I call myself, so I must be valuable, right? All those things are hard to let go of because we get so attached. We think that's who we are, right? It's really difficult to do, but that's what the pandemic also offered. Like, you can't do a lot of the things that you had defined yourself as. And for a lot of people, that was really devastating. And it's not that it's easy, but what a gift to get the chance to see, who you really connect with, who you are and what brings you joy, and how much of your life, like energy, is put towards something to keep other people happy or other people impressed or something like that. So it was, yeah, there was, in that way, there was so much beauty to it. So many people I know had great resets, and are just tuned in more with who they are and what they want. And there's still a lot of shedding, and that can be painful and such. But oh my gosh, I've seen such beauty on that side of it, of people connecting in with how they really want to live this life.
Yeah. Well, I especially, hi Joyce, hi Dan. I especially like the um, teaching yourself, and it's what is it called? Empirical. It's definitely empirical. Teaching yourself that things like you're feeling bad, you're feeling weird, you're feeling whatever, are actually messages. I think that's great, and I think it's an interesting thing to talk about with people. A lot of people just uh, how shall I put it in a nice way? They're not interested. That's the nicest I can think of. They're not interested for whatever reason. And um, but the more that you do that, the happier you become. The more that you realize, oh, that's not me, right? The happier you become. And yeah, I have had that realization for a long, long, long time. Also, including people who have departed. Um, it really totally hit me that if I'm suddenly missing my sister, that means she's here.
Mm.
She's visiting me. Oh, so instead of just lying around in the pain of the loss, I just start talking to her, and
Perfect.
I have a great conversation, and it's great. And so things like that. And you said empathetic, which is a great word. I think that's become more recognized and used in the last 20 years or so, which is great. It's not it's not, oh, my my aunt's an empath, hide her in the closet.
Yeah.
It's not that anymore. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people we're sort of exploring what the difference between empathetic and codependent is. Like we say, oh, it's so hard to be an empath, but really that's the part where we're being codependent, where we think we need to make everybody okay before we can be okay,
Yeah, that's
instead of just letting it pass through as information. Oh, that's what they're feeling. Okay, pass through. You don't have to hold it and try to fix it so that you feel okay, right? That's a huge part of the empath
yeah.
journey, and what the two words actually get sort of mixed up, that they are different
Yeah,
things.
that's those are just so different, such different things. And also the fact of the matter that you pick up on the group consciousness. I mean, I wish more people would really get that, because that can be really crazy. Very crazy stuff that you're just going along and you're feeling crazy or sad. Or yeah, I remember when Obama was first voted in. I totally felt the whole country come out of apathy. It was like,
Mhm.
ooh, it was like amazing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and the idea of well, the idea of performing in front of people, and as you said, you could, the possibility of picking up their points of view or emotion. Um, yeah, that's well, I think ideally, I have this idea of three universes when you're performing. The first universe is me. So in me, I have to be stable and committed, and I have to know my shit, and I have to be doing it, right? So, and then the second universe is me and the musician or musicians. So we're in that universe all creating, and they have their first universes going, and and that's where we're making all this really great stuff. And then the third universe is the audience. So a lot of times people do it backwards, and in kind of what we're talking about too,
Yeah.
if you're empathetic to the audience, so it can kind of switch over. But if the first two universes are strong and beautiful, then the audience is going to get the best gifts, because that's what our job is, right? Our job is to create these two universes of beauty and joy, and um, uh, almost a tangible perspective, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to view it. Hmm. Yeah, but to start with yourself, that's great, because that's what actually comes through, right? So many people, we have so many definitions of what selfish is and such like that. And people are so afraid of being called that they don't take care of themselves, right? And then we just all become kind of wounded people walking up to another wounded people saying, you say, oh, you know, I'll give you this piece of cheese. And they're like, oh, I'll give you this, like it's not really helping. If we would all take care of ourselves, then we could come to each another person full and they can see what the possibility is. But it just kind of keeps the wounded talking to the wounded and I'm not like putting that down, because of course the human experience is full of stuff like that, right? But we have to just change the definition of what selfish is. That I think that just kind of squashes people's lives, that they don't think they can take care of it, enjoy their own experience, and how that actually helps other people in the world, right? How many times in your life have you seen something like when I was a kid, I remember seeing movies and seeing how people were really like their attitude in the movie, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I want to do something like that, or I would love to be in the world like that. Like seeing it is so powerful. And how they talk about too, Obama being president, right? The first Black president, and all these children, that was the first president they knew, right? Like seeing that, how that just changes things, him doing that, right? Like that's a little bit different, but it's kind of because it's an action, but because it's not about worth. He's, in a way it is, right? He has to believe he's worthy to do a job like that, but it's so powerful. Yeah. And I think that's really similar to what you're saying about the universes. You create the stable, beautiful place, and then it can build that from there, rather than just everybody going around in circles trying to, like the zombie world, just eating each other's flesh more and more,
Well, there's two things I want to say. Yes. No. One is, when I was younger, I got this book called Broken Arrow, which is an American Indian book. And it's fascinating, actually. It describes an Indian point of view of, basically, this is my own words, but how you are supposed to go through life. So this has to do with part of the medicine shields, they call them, which is the shield that an Indian would carry, and what was on it, color, and the sign of certain animals, because of course Indians all over the place spoke different languages, so they couldn't actually speak the same. And east, west, north, and south has different colors associated with them, and also animals. For instance, the east has the eagle, and so which flies above and can see things and see detail, but that's their existence. Another one is the bear, another one is the mouse. So there are these qualities and characteristics that each one carries. So you get painted on your shield who you are. So if I met you and we spoke a different language, you could see by my shield who I am and what I need to fill out. And then you could help me on that journey.
Help them fill out, what do you mean? What kind of?
Me, because this is who I am, on the shield. And this is who I am and what I'm missing. So
Okay.
you, being an Indian from another tribe, can look at that shield and say, "Oh, she needs a little bit of the eagle in, because
Okay.
you know what I
Like
mean?"
how people talk about the elements too, right? Like, oh, you got
Yes,
a lot of fire in it. You need some water.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that the American Indian, which I have a lot of huge respect for, the original people and the original intent. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was, the other day I saw a very satisfying concert in the kind of the ways we're speaking of, which was Luciana Souza was singing with Vince Mendoza, and they had these beautiful arrangements by Vince, and incredible band, in LA. And so, and Luciana kind of epitomizes um, somebody who is serving humanity in a responsible way. She's very real, very organic. The sound of her voice is very organic. It's not some of these perfect voices that we are accustomed to hearing, especially in jazz now. Um, it's just beauty. Such a deep connection that she has with her sound that that's why people want to hear her, because it's totally connected. And to top it off, she's an incredible musician, and her agility is totally on the top. And somebody said, yeah, it's like she has a laser beam, and she does. It's you get this as a singer, you get this feeling like that she has this point of view of the music and what she has to do that is never disconnected. And it's not easy stuff that she's singing. And everybody's like that. Vince Mendoza's like that too. He's a real sweetheart and such a genius. And the music is special, and you could break it down and say why, you like to hear it, or why the musicians like to play it, or you could break it down like that too. But the overall effect at first is wow. It fills in all the little spaces that make beauty and make aesthetics what they are, Quite satisfying concert.
Mm. That's so lovely, right? To
Yeah.
find one that just kind of leaves you feeling nourished and like, oh, reminds you of something true, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I loved your concert at you and Luca and Luca
Jeremy.
or Lucas?
Lucas. Yeah.
Lucas, yeah. What is his last name?
Pino.
Pino, right. I really enjoyed his playing a lot.
Yeah.
And of course,
Very
Jeremy.
expressive and so dynamic, and yeah, and he's right in the story he's telling, right? Like yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Really great. And what about you? Did you come up? I just touched on reading your bio. That's what I do because I don't really like to get so super involved in, those details. I like to talk to the person now and then
Yeah.
touch on what's happening. But did you come up in a musical way, and did you study classical?
Well, I'm from a small town, so there wasn't a ton of training here, but I started singing in church maybe about, I think maybe 4 or 5. I was in the youth choir. I mean, I always liked singing and got the chance to. Uh, I had a friend who was a pianist and could work up songs really fast, so sing almost every Sunday. So singing in front of people that way got a lot of practice. And then I went to Concordia College here in Minnesota in Moorhead, and it's a choral school. Had he's retired now, but the great conductor Renee Clausen, who we just all loved. Like that was such a gift to myself that I chose that, because there was such a beautiful soul about him, and the way he would bring the lyrics to life. It was like he was dancing with the sound when he would conduct. So I think that really opened up something for me in the way he would make us taste consonants, So the deliciousness, I think, of singing was really came in from that. But yeah, I studied a little bit of classical there. I'm not that great at that, but it was great to, learn more skill that way. But they had a little bit of a jazz band there, though it wasn't a jazz school at all. So it's just kind of this extra thing. But I asked if I could sing along with them, and it went really well. And a lot of the people were like, "Oh my gosh, you should do this. You're so good." But they're a bunch of choral people, so I didn't know if they really, if it was like I was good for a choral person or if I was actually, you know what I mean? So it was just kind of in the back of my mind. And I thought, when I started teaching elementary music in a small town in Minnesota, I kind of had as a dream that maybe when I was 50 or something, I would sing in my first club, like I'd make my way there and it'd be a part of my life. But then I began to teach, and I was quite pretty good at it, and had a nice life, some friends and such. But I just, like we were talking earlier about the signal, I was getting major anxiety and it just feeling off. Like it kept feeling so off, like what is going on? So I luckily had some friends too that were really attuned to that, and they said, you need to explore what it is you're here to do. This isn't quite lining up, something's off. So they supported me through that change, because it terrified a lot of people around me, right? That I was quitting a teaching job to just go explore whatever it was. I didn't even know exactly what it was at the time. So yeah, then I did like a couple temp jobs, and I started doing some coffee shop gigs with a couple of the guys from the college I was at, that I played with there, just at a couple restaurants or whatever, and started getting feedback or whatever that was like, how long have you been doing this? It sounds like a long forever. And I was like, really? So it just really sped up fast, and it was all kind of school of life in a lot of ways. I had a mentor at that time, Arnie Fogel,
Oh yeah, that's
who,
how I first heard about you.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's what that little picture I put on Facebook, that's from him. Um, he kind of became a college for me. That way he would come to gigs and give me a lot of feedback about what I was doing well and what I could work on. Because I didn't even know what I was doing well, honestly. It was so
Oh,
new. And yeah, then just getting to play with, you heard Jeremy's music. There's a lot of difficult stuff in there, and that would kind of improve my skill, because I hadn't had the same jazz collegiate training that other people had. Um, yeah, I don't know anymore. That's kind of answers your question, I think.
yeah. Yeah, it does. Maybe I'll go here. I'll go take a listen again. We can. I think my friend Dan has posted a hymn of thanks at the Blue Whale.
Oh, he's got suggestions, huh? Nice.
Yeah, which is nice because the Blue Whale.
Yeah, it's no longer there, right?
Yeah, the Blue Whale. The creator of the Blue Whale was my student.
Oh,
Yeah, he came from Korea, and he found me through Musicians Institute, and yeah, and he was pretty young at the time, but he was a jazz singer, like from the get-go, and then at one point he said, "Kath, I'm opening a club," and I'm like, "What?" I mean, opening a club, wow. And anyway, became the Blue Whale. Great.
amazing.
Yeah, he's a really tasteful and wonderful and good-meaning person.
Yeah, I loved playing there. I had a,
Beautiful place, right? He was
yeah.
he was a an architectural student first.
Oh,
So
wow.
when he got the Blue Whale, he kind of redid the room, and it's quite beautiful. Do you remember the ceiling? It had poetry of Gabran on it.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice. Sorry.
Wise men recommend a prayer, though you may be filled with angst. Still, for the memories we love best, let all the blessed sing a hymn of moon that lifts the sagging tide. I'm thankful for summer love we made before you left my side. I'm thankful for the sun and shade, the moon that lifts the sagging tide. I'm thankful for summer love we made before you left my side. But now you are gone, and I abide, bitterly resisting ranks of solemn choirs who suggest. Let all the blessed sing a hymn of thanks.
That's quite nice. Nice.
Yeah, that was so fun. And nerve-wracking always to do a live video and audio recording like that.
Yeah. I had a live one from the Blue Whale too.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a really good engineer, an amazing engineer who did that for well-known people, and he's a pianist and he has a studio, and Wayne Pete is his name. He like Larry Coryell only wanted him to do live recordings of his big band. Really, really good, because it is difficult live.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You have somebody saying hi, Joyce Harguth.
Oh, hi, Joyce. She decided to link in, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
She said, great listening to you.
Oh, thank you.
But you mentioned Denmark. What happened with Denmark? How did you end up there, and how long were you there?
Yeah, well, in high school, there was actually a Danish foreign exchange student, Lena, my friend, came over, and she was a couple years ahead of me in school, so I didn't know her really well right away. But at the end of the year, her boyfriend was in a singing group I was in, and so we would see each other a little bit, and we started realizing, oh, we actually like connect here. There's, we got to a certain level that was really lovely. And we kept writing letters. And then eventually she's like, you should come and visit me. So when I was a teacher, then I would save up my money generally to travel to Europe in the summers. So that was just like, I felt like, I want to go there, I want to go there. So I went and stayed with her. And one of the times I went to visit, I had just started, maybe I just moved to New York. But anyway, she knew about how I entered the scene in Minneapolis first, was to go to a bunch of jam sessions and such. So she's like, let's go, come on, let's go do it. And she's like, then you'll get to play here. That'd be great. And I was like, well, yeah, let's give it a shot. And the first night we went out, I met a pianist that brought me over to and set me up with the band. And he didn't work out, but some of the people he had brought in were good matches. And they were able to start booking tours. So I would go 2 or 3, some years 4 times a year. And since I had this friend, and she had a little kid for a while there too, so I would come and stay longer and help and just be there. Like I'd always dreamed of living in Paris. Like I thought that's what I wanted, but when I actually went there, it wasn't the right energy. It was more the dream I had of Paris, and Copenhagen or Denmark was actually much more of a fit. And so we've done for almost 10 years, did like 3 tours a year. And I would stay a month and a half at a time. And it may continue. We're right now we have to record another album, and it's kind of gonna be, we got to create the sound as they are our originals. Peter Rosendale, the pianist I work with, and I have written some songs, and we've been touring them, but we haven't recorded them. So kind of figuring that out. So this year I might not be going there, but we have to, and well, maybe to record and such to get that in order. But so yeah, it's been a huge part of my life. And honestly, it was like riding bicycle. My friend lived in a town by the sea, which a lot of them are in Denmark, right? It's one peninsula and then 2 bigger islands and a whole bunch of little islands around. So it's coastline. And that was so different. I'm from Minnesota, right? So I hadn't even seen the ocean until I was 18. And so it was such a gift to explore this. Like I didn't even know I wasn't feeling like, oh, I got to see the ocean. But once I did, and I was just starting to live in New York at the time. And as we were talking about the empathetic thing, where I was picking up all these things and all the kind of push energy and the people who are kind of grumpy and having a hard time with their life and struggling, it was just like, kind of growing in over me, making a shell. So I found when I would ride bike along the shore, which I just love riding bike in a beautiful setting, and the water was just right there, and I would drive up to this town, peak of that island that Copenhagen is on, and there was a castle. So it was like I was riding to this castle, which was right on the sea, so you could sit on the coast there as well. And as I was riding, I would just tears would start falling sometimes randomly, and it was so amazing. It felt like something was shedding. So I welcomed them, it's just like this, release. Because honestly, there were some years there I really couldn't cry. Even though I knew stuff wanted to move out, but I had kind of convinced myself so much that, that's not a big deal. Don't cry about it. So much so I had trained myself that I couldn't, except for in singing. I would find tears moving out. So singing has always been this way of me finding a way back to myself, or coming back home. So it's a lot of the songs are actually kind of about the Danish nature and that sort of awakening to so many parts of my true self, getting to spend time there. It's in some ways I would say I didn't legally live there, but the last 10 years, I would say that's the home of my heart. It really spoke to me. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I can understand. And actually, my friend Breeze Smith, who's a percussionist, he lived there. And he said, Megget fint. And Heigeleicht. If I'm pronouncing
that means, good times. Hyggeligt or whatever,
Yeah.
The Y is like an U sound. Hyggeligt or something. Yeah, I'm trying to remember, very, very might. Like the G is a slide over. Yeah, it's a very strange pronunciation, but very, I don't remember what you said. Very fine, very lovely.
Yes.
Yeah. I only know a few words. They speak English so beautifully that it's like, you can only practice with toddlers, honestly. That's when I got the most practice, was when the toddler I knew we were reading books together. I'm like, yeah, this is helpful. Green, it's green. Oh, it's snake, okay. And then she grew out of it. But the cool thing is now she's my goddaughter. She's what, 8 or 9, 8 maybe.
Uh,
And there's so much stuff on YouTube that kids are listening to and watching in English too, right? So she was like learning all this stuff, and her parents didn't even know. And then one time I came, she was like, she spoke few little sentences, and they're like, what? So it's so sweet. Like for a while there, when she started speaking a lot more in Danish, I was like, we kind of lost a little bit of ability to connect in the communication way. And now it's coming back. It was such a beautiful gift because she's like a soul I meant to know for sure too. It's really special to be her godmother. Yeah.
that's very sweet. Yeah, I have a few Danish singer friends. Actually, Sinna E is,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, she's the big star there, Sina E.
yeah, and she's just adorable person and great singer.
Yeah, she's so gifted.
Um, a friend who I met in England, a dear friend named Sarah Oshlag, and she's a great swinging singer. She's really great. She lives over there and does a lot of work. Um, I think my friend Denmark, is it Denmark or
Well,
no?
Kristen Korb has moved there. She's a bass player
Yeah,
singer.
she has. Yeah,
Yeah.
her husband's a sweetheart too. Yeah, those
Yeah.
Danes, man.
Yeah, I mean, no place is perfect, of course, but it is a lovely, lovely place that has meant so much to me, for sure. So
Yeah, it's
grateful.
interesting. Again, speaking of the picking up on the energy and stuff. So I've had kind of similar travels in Japan. So
Hmm.
for 20 years I traveled there, and the first 10 years I went there 3 times a year on tour.
Wow.
And so I really and I feel like Japan is my second home. I think I mean, personally, I think I was in Japan before, you
Yeah.
know, and people, I can't tell you how many people say stuff like, "You remind me of a Japanese grandmother."
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I always take that as a compliment because it's something, some kind of wise, peaceful feeling.
True, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty
that's
funny.
lovely.
In fact, I was just about to go for 3 weeks when the pandemic hit. So I haven't been back because um, a lot of my income when I go there is teaching. And, you can't be breathing on people.
Hmm.
So I just heard that Japan opened up, but then also heard that Singapore has a new variant that's very strong, stronger than what we had already. So I'm just kind of waiting a little bit. I really wanted to jump on and just plan something for the spring, but I think I'm going to wait just to see what's happening, you know.
Mm.
But I really do want to go back, and I have friends in like the three kind of major areas, south in Hiroshima, the middle of the country, Osaka, and then north for Tokyo. But I really especially I would say the farmers and the artists. They are the cool people there.
Hmm.
They just have, you
I've
know,
not been to Japan, so super interesting.
oh, you'd probably love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd love it. But there is certain things, talking about picking up energy. When I fly into Japan, I usually go, enter into usually Osaka or Tokyo. And those cities, especially near the airport, are so intense that I actually I kind of shut down for a few days because it's too intense.
I
It's,
think just transitioning to another place, like Denmark, maybe not so much for me now because I've been there so many times, but in general, when we transition like that, we sort of have to allow time. Because I've had it before where, when I first started traveling, I was like, the first day, I was like, what did I do? I thought I would like this. But you just got to allow for that shift. And then a couple days later, you're like, whoa, I'm so glad I'm here. But it does take a minute because it's a different feel, different foods, different air you're breathing, different smells of plants. I mean, it's all
yeah, yeah.
different time zone. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. In June, I went back east and, from Boston. And I went to Boston, New York, and Delaware. And I had a few gigs. And the green, I always missed that,
Mm.
living here and I've lived here a long time, but of course there's beauty here, but the green and the water, I, I literally felt like, especially in this area, I
Mm.
just was wide open and getting this kind of healing energy in like every day, When I came back, I literally could not look out the window on the freeway. I couldn't do it. It was hurting me and it was hurting. And then for a few days I was just really down, just from that, And
Yeah.
then like you said, everything passed and then I was okay and I liked my life again.
Yeah, that's one thing about Minnesota. I mean, it's not a very exotic, or extreme landscape, but there's such a friendliness to it. And in not in winter, but in the other times of year, there, like, especially where I'm from, the soil is so fertile, right? So you can get some really delicious greens, like just full of life. And when I would go other places, I was like, what happened to this grass? I mean, why is it so sad? But I got it used to. That's one of the great luxuries of here is just the way the grass and the foliage is all so green, so alive, and you just feel like it's healthy and you know,
That's a blessing. Wow.
yeah. So that's a gift that I really appreciate. Every place has its different
Yeah, it
things, right,
does.
that it offers. Because the last time actually in LA, yeah, it was the release tour for Jeremy. I was able to kind of appreciate it more because I just sort of opened up and said, okay, what does it have to offer? Because I have a hard time sometimes with things that are really dry since I'm so used to green grass, like, so I would kind of feel like when that heat and that, and the drought or whatever, like sometimes like, whoa, I'm feeling attacked a little bit, took some very pale skin. I sunburned really easily and but this time I kind of was like, I just tried to let go of any sort of judgments and see what it had to offer. There was such like a pastel kind of sweetness to it, and the flowers, right? Like just sort of almost like a floral scent was everywhere when I let go of needing the green in a certain way, if that made sense. It was like
Totally. Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
poetic and just very
Yeah.
sweet.
Yes, you're right. Every place does have its own goodness. Yeah. Actually, Yugoslavia has a little bit like Minnesota. It's just the food that's grown is really intense and organic. It's really earth, and yeah, that was a place that I really enjoyed eating.
Yugoslavia.
Yugoslavia, yeah, yeah, it was really good.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
I think there's some real, like, the Slavic area in general, like there's some real beauty in the nature and such that hasn't really been tapped into, right? I don't think
yeah.
the Americans travel there much or whatever, but I've have a few friends now because of the beauty of the internet that live or are from that area, Romania or something, and they post a picture of, a cottage they're visiting in this forested, valley with beautiful water. I'm just like, okay, like it's like a stuff of storybooks, that kind of beauty, like
I have a friend in Pakistan who takes pictures of his area, and it's that kind of thing too. There's a whole different beauty to it. Uh,
yeah,
I haven't been to that area of the world, but it's intriguing, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
find there's some places that it takes me a while to feel the beauty of it or feel okay with it, if that makes sense. Like Denmark was pretty easy for me to feel it, and every time I go, almost if I go spend some time in the forest and then walk over to the sea, I'm like, oh my gosh, even on a rainy day.
is that where
But it was
your heritage line is?
not necessarily. We found out there was a little bit of Scandinavian in there. We didn't know there was, so it could be Danish, that way. But yeah, and I went to Portugal earlier in the year and I saw pictures of it and it was so beautiful, and I met really beautiful people there, but there was something about the landscape that I was trying to kind of get settled with, if that makes sense. Like it was sort of unsettling to me and a little bit, and even though it's so beautiful, so it's not that it's not beautiful, but just a personal. So it's like, that's interesting. And the parts of Asia I have been to, except for Bali, were a bit like that. I felt kind of unsettled. But Bali was just like, oh, I love
Bali,
it.
I've heard really nice things about Bali.
Yes.
I lived in Vienna for a little bit, and when I
Hmm.
first got there, the language that I heard really upset my body a lot. It was
Oh, I
very,
don't feel good. You gotta stop talking.
it was harsh,
I love it.
edgy, and it
Yeah.
took me a while to relax. I mean, we're musicians, so when we get to hang out with the artists, I think that that's the soothing,
Yeah.
balm for us. But yeah, I was like, what? I never even thought about it before. I mean, yes, my heritage is Jewish, and I can see how that might, affect something in me, some kind of lineage, even maybe the body lineage. I don't know. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. It's like, wow.
That
I,
was actually one of the hardest things about Denmark for me at first, because the language is quite throaty and and they really swallow it. And it's almost the same languages as Norwegian and Swedish, which I learned. I mean, there are some differences, of course, but they can kind of read each other's language. It's pretty similar that way. But theirs is in the throat, and Swedish and Norwegian, it's like dancey and da 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 da, but then all of a sudden the Danish take those same sounds and they're like, let's put it back here. And I couldn't even like distinguish what was a word, where a word ended, because it's a very like they kind of
floaty or
take off
yeah.
some letters, and it sort of slurs through, and they just, yeah, it's kind of, and they'll say, oh, they were kind of lazy about it, they just like throw some letters off the end like the French do, whatever, and then it all slides together. And it's just, at first I was like, what is happening? But then I started to learn a few words and I was like, oh, they're maybe kind of talking about that, or I could hear it just, I don't know, but I just got used to it. And that was super fascinating to me, to be like, I used to idolize certain languages, and I don't know, I think, oh, that's French is so attractive or whatever, but that's kind of gone now. It's more just about connecting with a person, right? Because it's just like that all disappears after a while. It's at first you might have some sort of judgment or preference about something, but it kind of disappears after a while, because it's not really
Yeah.
that important. It's interesting, but it's not that important about who we are.
Yeah, I was talking to my husband because we're going to Paris in a few weeks, and
Oh,
he's not really accustomed to hearing a lot of different languages, or it's just what his experience has been. And so we've been taking some online courses, and I just want him to not, you know, have a painful experience, like hearing somebody say bonjour, and so,
yeah.
it's getting more and more like that. We were talking the other day, and he was kind of sweating a little bit over like remembering, like he knows bonjour, but he all of a sudden he couldn't remember how to say hello. And I said, really, when it comes down to it, when you're traveling, it's not really about the language. It's actually about the intent of the communication. And that's really,
Yeah.
in Japan, I remember I went into one of these like tents where you sit down and you eat, and these three guys came in, and we had one word that we all spoke together. And one of the guys kept saying, "I'm James Bond." That was for 2 hours. We hung out for
I
two
love it.
hours, and that guy, the James Bond guy, and I became friends. He was,
Well, how can you not be friends with James Bond? I mean, come on.
yeah. So, but the whole point is, it's communicate. It's just,
Yeah.
you don't need to speak necessarily.
Yeah.
So,
It's fascinating, isn't it? Uh, sometimes those are the best moments. Sometimes they're just like awkward and frustrating or whatever, and you're like, well, that was nothing. But like I had this when I did a gig in Vietnam for, what was I there 3 months? Was that one? And at the end, I wanted to tour around a little bit. I actually ended up going to Bali mostly, but I went to this beautiful like fjord and caves in Vietnam somewhere. And I went by myself. I was there singing. And I got on a boat with this older Vietnamese couple, and they didn't speak any English. And of course, so the tour guide was it was kind of casual. They were talking more to them. I don't know if they knew any English anyway, but these people kind of took responsibility for me because we'd get off at these sort of little islands, and then we'd have to walk through a little bit and then get picked up again. But I didn't understand the directions. What So it was so sweet. They would like stand there and kind of wait for me to make sure I was coming along, and then we just sort of smiled at each other. We even got a picture, and I'm 5'10", right? And this little lady, this cute little lady, she's under my arm. We got a picture, and she's just kind of squeezing me. Like we had this beautiful communication that was no words, and I was just like, this. Sometimes you can go farther because
Yeah.
you don't have the same structures that you're trying to operate in, right? You're just doing the best you can as a human to say something else to another human, and and they were caring for me, right? And I would help them get in and out of the boat so we could kind of help each other because they were older and and more slow. It was so sweet. It was like I was so hot. I'm like, what am I doing here? It was like 100 and some degrees, and I'm like covered in a hat and all this stuff. But it was just such a sweet interaction. It turned out to be such a highlight because of them, and our made up communication.
That's really nice. I've heard very good things about Vietnam and Vietnam people.
Yeah, there was real genuine kindness there. It was very, yeah. I went to Thailand, and people would say that was the land of the smile, and I think that's quite lovely too. But I actually found Vietnam to be even like there was more of a genuine kindness. But I think there might be more of a frustration with the sort of tourist industry, the Western world kind of coming in Thailand too. I think that was part of it, just sort of like putting on a smile when there's a lot of gross things happening with the way the West has interacted. Not that it hasn't with Vietnam in a way too, right? But yeah, there was such a sweetness, and I made a buddy at the bar who spoke just a little bit of English, but we communicated we like none, like say 30% of it actually translated with each other. The rest he was like, But in that trip, I had made a little tour to Denmark. They let me take off a few days because I had these gigs booked, and so I came back with a rock that I'd picked up from the Danish coastline. And I wasn't, at first I just had picked it up because that's what I would do and put it in my pocket. It was kind of fun to feel them, right? And then all of a sudden I'm like, I should give this to him. He, like he talked about his connection to the earth or whatever. And I handed him the rock, and he goes, oh, I can feel the beauty and the calmness in here. Like it was just so sweet, this moment of, it's just a rock, right? But like he had never traveled anywhere, or just except for in Vietnam, because the currency exchange is just crazy, right? For them to fly over here, how much that would cost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, let's see. My friend found you singing at the Copenhagen Jazz Festival. Can I
Okay, well,
can I show that or?
sure. I don't know if that's one of my best videos, but if you want to, you can.
Well, we can always like die out a little.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it is long, I will die out.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I thought it was the outdoor one.
Here I am at 3, the sandbox all set up for morning tea. And here I am pretending I'm a cat. And here's a shot of all of us, all but you. I know that you weren't there, but somehow I still see you everywhere. In every picture, standing by my side, exactly as you must have looked. Did you do things, good things, all those years? Could there still be part of you in me? wish that you have pictures of your own. A row of kids in fancy dress. The things I couldn't guess. When you see the faces I could never know. Picture me.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you. Actually, yeah, that's a tune by David Haydu and Rini Rasmus.
Uh-huh. Oh.
Yeah.
Now you have something else up, uh-huh. Is this you?
Yep. I like the Sunrise. It's a Duke Ellington arrangement. The arrangement is by Jeremy.
Oh. I can't I'm afraid to watch it because it's an official video because Facebook likes to take me off when I do
Oh,
official videos. That word official is like
right.
yeah.
Even though they're my official and I'm right here,
I
but they
know.
don't know that, right? I guess. Yeah.
Well, I I'm kind of good with technology, but there are certain things where it's like I just have reached my limit. So
Yeah.
sometimes uh, the Facebook, makes me reach my limits. But anyway, I just do workarounds. I'm good at workarounds.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think that's a good way to approach technology to just keep learning and, like if you think you got to be a master of everything, it sort of
Yeah,
paralyzes you, right?
yeah. Sorry. Hi, honey.
Hi, honey.
Um, so, I'm not sure how to enter this part of the conversation, but so we talked about moving into a more uh, spiritual. I'm using the word spiritual because it is spiritual, but for I'm leaving the definition open, but more of a spiritual path, I guess I could say, and so there was some point I take it that um, I'm sure it was a buildup, but there was some point where you probably went, you know, this is what's really important, and was it during the pandemic?
Yeah, there was a huge shift during the pandemic. I mean, my whole life, I mean, I remember thinking or feeling when I was a kid that I was just like, I just want to know God. I experience, and at the time I didn't know this word, but it was to experience God or divine, whatever the person wants to call it, right? So it was always there, but you go about your life like you're just trying to do what you're sort of shown and what people are doing. You go, and then I tried to be a teacher. That didn't work out because I had my anxiety I was, curled up in the fetal position on the floor. I was like, I know I can't go back to work if this is what it's bringing me to, in the summer. Like I can't go back. How could I do it if this is what and it wasn't a terrible life. That's the weird thing. It wasn't like some tragedy. It was just like
Yeah.
not aligned. Um and singing kept bringing me back to it too without me knowing, because I think the tones in music act a bit like a massage or kind of a reminder of just some, it moves out all the stuff that we hold that's not really us, right? It can help kind of loosen that and loosen tears for me of things I needed to let go of and such. And yeah, when the pandemic hit, it was just yeah, I mean, man, how do you start, right?
I know.
Uh, I knew it was time to let go of all the egoic structures. It was time to just like uh, still do some of the same things. It wasn't that I had to just change my job or anything, but everything is done from the joy of existing as a soul in a human body. Like, wow, here we are in this experience, right? And to really feel into what felt great and what felt alive versus what you're told is going to get you there in this certain set of dogma or rules or anything. And um, it's just about connecting more and more to the truth of who I am. And for everybody, that same thing. I believe in people communicating with themselves, like, or just that truth of them that becomes their expression, right? So I'm not super into gurus or anything like that. It's all about people just aligning again, aligning with who you really are. But that means letting go of a lot of things that you saw yourself as. Like we see ourselves through so many structures, right? Me as a singer, but that was in some ways really great for this egoic structure, right? Because people are very intrigued by that and they want, oh, you have a life where you get to travel. And yes, those things have been so beautiful and such a gift. I'm so grateful. But now it's about doing them from a place of, does this bring me joy and that feeling of being alive in the moment, being present, and really listening to what the guidance is and not to what someone else might think of me if I don't do this or do this. So, like that's not super cool in the musician world in a way because there are things that make your status look better, and then some people will want to hire you more because they can advertise you a certain way, right? But I have made my peace with, like, I know that for myself, when I was opening up to the more kindness to myself, more truth of myself, teachers or whatever would show up, or just the right thing when I was really open, right? So uh, when we're really ready for the next thing, that thing shows up for us to lead us that way, not to become our guru or whatever, but it helps you, right? So like for me, that's what I want to be. I want to be just the truth and the joy of who I am, like the joy of existing. And if there are people who are drawn to that, like in that point of their life, they'll come forward, but that might not be the masses, and that's okay, like it really is okay, because it's just like it tied me up in knots to try to please people and to be a definition of anything that people were okay with.
Was
So
there
I know
was there actually one particular thing that you feel comfortable bringing up as an example
one particular thing.
that you went, oh, I have to let go of this? Um,
Oh, well, one thing I could think of is actually New York. It was legally my address, and I was there at the beginning of the pandemic. And New York has given me so many gifts. It wasn't a mistake to live there. The people I met and then getting to make music there, and actually the big part is that it helped launch me to go to Europe more. That's a big thing that I really wanted to do. And kind of coming to terms with that it's so glamorous to get to say, yeah, I live in New York. People go, oh, wow. And then they want to talk about it or whatever, to let that go and just be like, yep, it doesn't bring me joy to live there. So I can go visit if I want to experience that, go play there. But it's not a joyful thing for me. So why do I keep making myself do this? I realized the only thing was the fear of losing those connections or losing that point of being interesting to other people by
yeah,
living there. That was a big one.
that's a big one.
Yeah, because it's a real thing, right? Like people people respond to things they find impressive.
Yeah.
And
Um, I'm this is this may not be conversation for the show. Maybe it's like a call conversation kind of thing. Uh, I guess you're not married,
Nope.
and I'm just wondering, has has having a relationship or relationships, has that been an easy part of your life? Because your life seems to have gone in sections, and a lot of traveling.
As far as a married relationship and children, I really didn't want that. Um, and I can see why now with what I wanted to discover in this lifetime and the things I wanted to release that would have been tricky to do so. So that I was not a problem for me, and I have loved friendship wise. I mean, it's with the technology, you can keep in touch with people and the connections. And I actually love spending a lot of time alone, maybe more than other people. So for me, it's not really a problem, I guess, because I really needed that time to just sit with me, just really sit there and make good friends or with that person, if you want to say it that way. Like that's a big thing that I wanted out of this lifetime, to not, um,
Be distracted by somebody else.
yeah, and there's a lot of beauty in that, but honestly, for me, it's not what I wanted. So, I mean, who knows what the future will bring or whatever, because I have changed so much, things are changing, and I see things, see the world so differently and what I want differently, but it has served me really beautifully to not have that. I haven't had the same I mean, there's been maybe loneliness in some ways, but that's almost more of an existential thing than a thing a person could solve. I actually knew that if I were to get married at that point or try to pursue a serious relationship, that I would feel more alone
Mm.
uh, in it. And that's not the case for everybody, but I could feel that that's not what I was seeking.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Okay. And and um so you have a direction and a community of spiritual growth. Did you tell me that early on?
yeah, I mean, mostly through the internet, right? But other people on like a consciousness journey that are releasing all those egoic identities to just uh, bring as much of the soul into this experience as possible. Like, not that we're disconnected from our soul, but that's kind of part of what the veil is, or whatever they talk about, that you can sort of place these imaginary um, the veil, this blockage, so that we forget what we are, our eternal nature, right? Like we talk about it in different ways, whatever, but really experiencing that and feeling that, and that's like what the present, being in the present moment, being present, feeling your own presence in the present moment, that is bringing it into this reality, and it's a different experience, because as human, or when we are more in human personas and constructs, we're looking towards the future or the past, or distracting with something rather than being present. Because when you're in that as presence as well, you're going to feel all the things that want to release that are sort of blocking. So that's what gets hard for people, and they're just like, I'm out, like it can be pretty tough. You have to sit with different childhood aspects or whatever that come up, that we probably played down in some ways too, but it's lots of things. It's a traumatic actually to be born in this reality, if you think of where you're coming from, and then eternally, and then becoming into this womb where it's a bit more cozy and such, but you feel your parents' fears about, what's this baby going to do in the world, like how is this going to be okay, you feel all that, right? And then you pop out into these bright lights and harsh sounds, and I mean that's traumatic too. So like releasing all these things that we kind of store, that just seems so commonplace, to get back to the presence, that natural state of who we are. And it's so simple. That's actually the part that's difficult. That's the presence that we are is so simple that we overlook it. Like when we say listening to our heart, it's a very simple, subtle, usually the first subtle voice. And then when people are like, well, is it this or this, or I'm feeling this? And I'm like, a lot of those are different fears or mental talk, right? When it gets to be that kind of, well, we're not tuned in. So yeah, people who are on that same journey of letting go of all those constructs, letting them all go, which can mean a lot of things look different in your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I was when I was putting on my makeup today, I usually every day I listen to either Eckhart Tolle or
Oh, I love him.
Abraham,
Yeah.
Esther Hicks, just because, just I
Yeah.
I find that I do better during the day if I listen a
Mm.
little. And I happened to it happened to go over to this woman who had died, or she had a near-death experience, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful um, thing to hear. And um, yeah, it's just the stuff that you and I probably kind of accept, which is, you know, she slipped out of her body and everything was fine. She didn't feel any pain. She didn't feel any negative emotion.
Mm.
And she saw lights that were beings, and she went through a tunnel, and she experienced absolute love, and which I apparently the experience had been several years back, and she still was overwhelmed,
Yeah.
with it. And then she actually got a nudge to come back, to go back. And she said she resisted it. She was like, I don't really want to go back. I'd like
Yeah.
to stay
After you
here.
feel that
Yeah,
ease and
yeah.
beauty. Yeah.
So she came back into a body filled with pain. She had had stones, kidney stones that had blocked everything. So all the toxins were going through her body instead of, being released.
Mm.
And that's what she was, dying of. So that was yeah. And she was so calm and peaceful and full of love. I mean, it's we're really lucky to have music because we are taught so many different lessons that are so applicable. As a matter of fact, I don't think I ever told you this, but during the pandemic, I actually put a book together, a very
Oh,
tiny,
yeah.
yeah, The Act of
Beautiful.
Becoming, which is actually a philosophy book. And over the years, mostly through teaching, or probably through other things too, but just observing. But through teaching, it really intrigued me that if I was teaching somebody this idea about, well, anyway, this idea could actually be same idea applied to voice technique, applied to singing jazz, and applied to life. And it just intrigued me, it was like the same lesson for
Mhm.
all the different areas. So I put this book together, and it's just, yeah. And it's funny because when I when I put the book together, these three areas are very close to me, voice technique, singing jazz, and life, living. And so, but then after I put the book together, I thought, I'm really not, I'm not utilizing this as much as I could because, of course, we have different areas of our life, more than that, right? And again, if I take my own advice, these same lessons apply to other areas too. It's really worth contemplating, and sitting down, contemplating and writing about it and such. Um, I also, a few years ago, I redid my website to reflect this point of view that we're talking about because uh, I didn't, I just thought, I just want to really be who I am. And if somebody wants to be involved with me musically, I want them to know that this is more of who I am. So it reflects more of this kind of spiritual point of view. And the people that I have gotten through the website are definitely, they're looking for that, which is,
Mhm.
it's thrilling to me. It's really great. I love when students show up like that, because then
Yeah.
I feel like I can really give them something.
Yeah, the beauty of when we put ourselves out there honestly, actually what it attracts, right? We're so kind of afraid of if it's a little bit different of the rejection or people, whatever, name calling or something like that. But when we do that, then what it attracts, how that's so beautiful. You're like, oh, okay. And it also gives other people permission to be themselves, right? Like when people feel that truth, even if someone kind of has different wording for it or a different approach, I have a lot of friends who are on a journey of like releasing stuff and being true to themselves, but they're doing it different ways than I approached it. And now I'm really seeing the great beauty in that, right? Because that's kind of what it is. We're all these different like eyeballs of God sort of going through the creation and experiencing it. So of course we're going to have these different viewpoints and ways of finding God, finding the divine, like remembering it, and in different timelines too. It doesn't matter. It's all okay, that it doesn't have to everybody be right here at this time, because that's not, every soul has their own beautiful journey, right? And to respect that too, and not push people. That can be a thing when we get excited about something we discovered, like Eckhart Tolle was huge for me, changed my life. I love him so much.
Yeah.
Like I read his book, The Power of Now, probably like 30 times. And the first few times I read it, it was like a sentence, and then I'd have to stop and rest. It was so, I could feel my body vibrating, and it was so much change in me, like it was helping old things to go. But then I would tell people about it, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that didn't really do much for me. I didn't, because it's like kind of a different language. And I'm like, oh, I get it, but then they had something else that you're like, oh, that's beautiful, it is fun to see how everybody's life is a work of art that way. I love that now, when I've let go of, oh, they got to do it the way I do it, because that's just ridiculous. What are you trying to create, clones? That's not, no, they're all beautiful souls.
Yeah. I have about 25 books by the side of my bed, and um yeah, they've been books that I've been reading over the last few years, like I'll read for a while, and then I'll want to move on, but there are books, like there's one called Letting Go.
Mm.
And there's also, recently I found, which was really interesting, Thomas Hubel, and he's from Europe. He might be Danish, but he's done this whole trauma uh, trauma releasing, and with people who are really great to listen to. And so it's one of those things you can see on the web. Excuse me.
Yeah, I recently read a book called I Am Serena by
Oh,
Serena Faith Masterson, and I mean, she had some extreme traumas. I mean, so if some people, it's not like a light read, it's going in, but she, with the help of somebody else who, a facilitator, she was able to incorporate multiple personalities back home. Like she had hundreds of them, and she's no longer a multiple personality like that anymore.
oh.
Like she was able to, with conscious breath, and then also with the help of this person. So if that's, I mean, but again, you kind of got to be ready for that one. It's not a light read. But like when it's just like miracle after miracle. I mean, it's so beautiful and profound. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty amazing, because that's some hard work.
Right?
You know? Excuse me.
Releasing some stuff in the throat, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long story too. Oh gosh. Let's see. I want to actually again I'm going to ask you what you might like to share other than the official video.
Mm.
Let's do
other than the official video.
yeah. Nancy Harms.
If you want an up-tempo one, maybe Poor Wayfaring Stranger in Paris. But I really love the video. It's not an up-tempo one of Rolling Back to Me.
Okay.
And that I don't think that says official. That's kind of a live recording of sorts. This is one written with Peter in Denmark, and it's for how I talked about how the riding bike by the sea just changed my life. And this is about that, just the love, trying to communicate that love to the sea, and like the gratitude and the mystery of it, like the vastness of it, just coming at kissing your feet, like, and how so many people have been profoundly, affected and have this love affair with the sea in their own way.
Okay. I'm going to go get my cough medicine while I'm playing it, so. But I'm going to start.
I can feel you're trying to tell me something. I stop to see you every day. You know it keeps me coming back. I lean in and almost here, but the birds, they frighten it away. Oh, they frighten it away. You keep rolling back to me when I meet you in the sand. You keep rolling back to me, and be still my lonely heart. I think you're asking for my hand. You kiss the rocks that sit on the shore, and you slowly change each hardened face, and it keeps me coming back. I thought my heart too hard of stone to be softened by your ways, to be softened by your grace, to be softened by your grace. Keep rolling back to me when I meet you in the sand. You keep rolling back to me, and be still my lonely heart. I think you're asking for my hand. Then last night you seemed so uneasy. You wept and churned, no words to say. Moon breathing deep upon your back. But in the morning you turned to face me, and I felt let a tear run down my face. That's just what I wanted to say. That's just what I wanted to say. You keep rolling back to me when I meet you in the sand. You keep rolling back to me, and be still my lonely heart. I think you're reaching for mine. You keep rolling back to me when I meet you in the sand. Oh, you keep rolling back to me, and be still my lonely heart. I think you're asking for my hand. I think you're asking for my hand.
Nice.
Thank you.
That you said that was one that you wrote in or in Denmark, or
Yeah, with Peter Rosendale, the pianist that I work with there. And actually, that video is shot in his little music studio, which is in his garden or lawn. They call it garden, I guess, but they generally have more, they don't have as much like fields of grass like we do here with the yard, more shrubs and such. But, and it's fun too. We just recorded and kind of worked on a video for, we'll see when he gets it out, a tune called Peter's Garden. And it's in honor of that garden, because going there to write, that's where we would we would do some parts separate because it works better that way sometimes, and then bring it together what we had, had created individually. And we would do it in the garden, and just, he's kind of a mysterious, quiet guy and speaks more through music than he does through words in some ways, And so I didn't know him for the first few years very well. And when he started writing, and I would go there and I saw the way his face lit up talking about the garden and what, all the different critters that would come to visit and the plants and what that meant to him. And meeting his wife is very quiet too. And just thought, maybe are they okay? But there was just such a sweet quietness about both of their hearts. And here, this garden, they would just sit in this little beautiful cocoon of beautiful things, of alive things. And it was like their heart came to life around them in this garden, So we wrote a song called Peter's Garden, and hopefully that'll be out next year on his next album or whatever. But that video is actually in that spot. There's been a lot of sweet things, sweet moments in there made, and it's all surrounded by plants, and he's got these quirky old pianos that he likes, so a lot of character. And
wow, that sounds pretty cool.
yeah, I think there's a lot of sweetness and kind of like mystical, magical energy, fairy tale-ish energy in Denmark, and that's one of the things I've really loved about it. It's a place where the beauty is a bit more subtle, and you might have to wait through some kind of crazy weather stuff, but you get those amazing sunbeams that burst open between clouds and land right on the sea, and everything becomes silvery, and it's dancing around. I mean, for me, there's just so much of that kind of like fairy, I don't know the right word to describe it, but a little bit of magic, but also not all cheery too. There's kind of a hardiness to that as well. a
Yeah.
strength and a mysticism kind of. Yeah.
I've been rereading Through the Looking Glass and Down the Rabbit Hole, Alice in Wonderland, because actually, Through the Looking Glass was the first book I ever read,
Oh
which
wow.
makes me laugh because it kind of explains a few things. But
You were drawn to it for a reason, huh?
yeah, and I've been rereading it. First I reread Through the Looking Glass, and then last night when I couldn't sleep, I I got up and had a drink and was rereading Through the Looking Glass, or the other one, the Down the Rabbit Hole. But yeah, and it's kind of like that, what you just said. There's some fairy dust in it, but it's not all, super light. It's actually kind of quirky, and it has like personalities in it, and it has what I find really interesting is things work backwards. And that actually makes me laugh. Kind of thinking about how my understanding of life has been, over the years. But so, in other words, like if you were gonna slice a cake, the cake would not be there first, and then I can't explain, but it's like the actions instead of ABC, it's CBA, and so it just makes me laugh, like thinking about that because you know,
You have an example in your life?
well, oh shitloads, because I mean I have thought since I was very young that and I like thinking like this, but the focus of it has gone in and out over my life. But I think that everything that I know is my own creation. And so and I used there was a period of my life where I was pretty what can I say? I was pretty committed and limited to that point of view. Everything was my creation. This whole moment, everything that I know about is my universe. That's it. And when I did think like that, I had some pretty unusual and astounding things that happened where it was kind of empirical, and it showed me that that was in fact true, or that's what I thought at the time. As the years went on, I got a little more loose, flexible, I should say, with that point of view. And now, so now I'm willing to believe you have your universe, I
Yeah.
have my universe, but they include each other, right? You're in my universe, and so what that means to me is that everything you are and is in my universe too, even if I'm not, even if I haven't visualized it, which is also like how I never was. Well, I won't say never, but at an early age, I decided not to be jealous, because if you're doing something great and you're in my universe, I'm winning.
Yeah, right. It's
I
true.
don't, this person right here, I don't have to experience it personally myself to win.
It's very true. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. It's a good way not to be jealous and take
Yeah.
competition in an unhealthy way.
Well, you can go into the world with a more creative and open mindset to just create, you know what I mean? When there's jealousy, it really starts to put like limiters on and pressure, and that takes the joy out of it. So you have gave yourself a great gift of so much joyful creating versus, trying to keep up, or you know what I mean? Like some people they have these great things they've accomplished, but yet it's always about what's the next thing? What's the next thing, like maintaining it.
Yeah.
And I felt so much of that when I had a few more achievements like stacked upon each other. It was that I wasn't enjoying them that much. It was about, oh my gosh, how do I maintain this? What's the next thing? Because I wasn't accustomed to being in the present moment. So how can you enjoy the thing that's happening now, you know?
Yeah.
And then if you're worried about, oh, I got this person relying on me to stay this way and this person relying on me, you know, it gets to
Yeah.
be such a mess. But what you said about it being in your own universe, like I've heard it described as then like you're in like this sort of bubble of all your potentials, all, you know, you got your consciousness in the middle and then the bubble of all your potentials and all your experiences and possible experiences, past and future or whatever. And then like someone sort of presses upon, other souls press upon your bubble. So it's like they're not in it in a way, you're just still your being, but and then you interact, you know, like then you create the experiences that we're having, but we're each own in our own universe or our energy around our consciousness or whatever you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, we were talking about the word responsibility. So when I was growing up, my mother used that word with negative effects because I was a little too much like my dad and she didn't want that. So she kept forcing this word responsibility on me, thinking that I would you know, change when I really was just an artist. And but she saw me as my dad, you know, because there was something similar that my dad and I had. And I was probably in my late 20s or early 30s, but when I realized what the word responsibility meant to me, and it was such a different thing. It was, I'm not responsible. It's not like a heavy bag that I'm carrying for you, you know. No, it's responsible to what I'm capable of and who I am. And then by being the best that I can be, and if we share a universe, and which is not, I mean, I could share a universe with a guy I look at in the street, you know, because he is in my universe now, you know. I've seen him, he's seen me. And when I improve myself, all universes that touch mine improve. And it may be this much, you know, could be this much. And then if I go down, you know, then that's also when I'm affecting all those universes in a down way too. So that that's been real to me too over the years. It's like, be the best you can be, which is actually comes from the Four Agreements. You've probably read the Four Agreements, right?
I actually haven't, but I've heard many people talk about it.
Such a cool little book, and it's not easy. It's not fast to go through, but it's this small, you know. But it's like, oh, wait a minute, yeah. I mean, it's deceptively simple.
Mm,
And so, anyway, one of the agreements is is do the best you can do.
yeah.
So, yeah, and that what kind of a great lesson is that in all areas of your life, right? Just you can apply that everywhere, right?
Yeah. I've heard a similar thing described as people talking about, you know, we have mass consciousness, we have our own consciousness, but it kind of like mass consciousness is all the thoughts and beliefs kind of put together and can be like a big magnet and so easy to get pulled in. And like when there's a lot, you know, and now with the internet, people can communicate things across the world so fast. And this is a lot of the struggle people are having, right? Is this we've all can tune into this huge mass consciousness whenever there's something terrifying that happened. And fear, you know, like even if like, you know, 20 years ago, you probably wouldn't have heard about it or, you
Yeah,
know, very briefly or something, but now it can consume your world. And that energy of fear that goes in the mass consciousness, well, that sort of feeds that, right? And I've heard people say in relating to what you were saying, like, I'm not going to pollute the world with more fear. I'm not going to feed the fear. You know,
yeah,
when people can look at you and think, oh, you're heartless, you're not doing, you know, like if someone's sad, you'd be sad with them all the time.
yeah,
But you're actually just in a creator's standpoint, you're creating more of that rather than stopping feeding that and showing people a way out, you
yeah.
know? So that's that's the, yeah, it all kind of ties in beautifully, I think, to what you were saying there
Yeah,
about them being in your universe, and that you not, going into that's fear and
yeah,
acting from fear, it affects them in the way that they can see the potential, and they may, you may not discuss it, it's just there, just like mass consciousness is there, and we can feel
yeah,
all those worries and traumas, that are coming up, to all the traumas that are old, that have been, just dormant and shoved down, are like coming up, and like, all right, here we go, guys. But you can't carry all that, like, that's,
right.
you're not meant to. It's like, we're
Yeah.
releasing it, let it go, let it go, here we go.
And that's actually a good thing that we can do, especially as artists. You know, that what you just said is our ability, and if we come to it in the right frame of mind, we can be the facilitators of release,
Yeah.
and healing.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I remember many years ago realizing some of what you're talking about as far as a group consciousness and picking up people's ideas. I was driving through Hollywood and there was a guy walking with crutches. He was walking not well. He was really walking badly. And this thought came into my mind like, "Oh, wow, that's so cool." And I thought, "What is that? What what did I just think?" Like, and then I realized it was his thought. He was carrying that, and he had created it on some level, whatever level, if you
Maybe
believe.
he just got the crutches and he was like, oh, this is helpful.
Well, that's true. Very nice thought. Yeah, but I realized, oh, I'm picking up his thought.
Yeah.
It's not my thought, So, yeah, I always say this, it would be on a different planet in a different moment of time. We as artists would be utilized as the reflective mirror to what the people are going through. And then the government would work with that, in a good way to heal. And, I should write a book. I should write a story about that. I really should, because that idea has stayed with me so long.
Mm. Yeah, if it was that strongly and felt given to you,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. So it's actually been about 2 hours, but I just want to end off. What are you doing now musically? Should people kind of look out for something, or yeah?
Yeah, so for shows, I have a couple in Minnesota coming up in December 10th. One in my hometown, they're building, Clara City, Minnesota. They built a new auditorium with the school, the new building. So it's like a inaugural concert in this space that's going to serve the community really beautifully. And then the next day, the 11th, in Minneapolis at Crooners. And I'm going to bring in Ike Sturm from New York, the bassist, and he's going to maybe do some background vocals with some of my newer tunes, and which is more singer-songwriter and a bit of the few of the Danish tunes. And we're going to try to explore, because I saw him doing some kind of meditative singing while playing the guitar. He put some stuff on Instagram, and I was like, I want to sing with you. Like, it just felt like the same, like my heart was like, yes, that would be so fun, to like whatever the sound he was making, so there's going to be a little exploration there. So we'll have a little bit of that in the concert as well. So that's a fun thing I'm looking forward to exploring. And yeah, right now I'm doing a little breathing class here in Clara City for one more month now. My mom has a chronic shaking condition, and we had done some exploring of breathing with the stuff I've learned as a singer, and just different breathing courses I've done, right, that have changed my life. And at the end, we just did one session together, and at the end she said, this is the first time in years that I haven't been feeling the shaking at my core. And it was just a moment. I was like, what, like, because this is a small town Minnesota that's maybe a little bit out of what's, like a breathing class, that's ridiculous, blah, whatever. But I'm like, this has changed my life, I'm going to share it, like different things from random singing things I've taken or whatever, where like, ooh, that one thing that really, stuck with me. So I'm exploring stuff like that too with sound and breath, and it's kind of a building time of that. So there may be more of that kind of stuff showing up and
That, first of all, I would like to take that class. Second of all, I really do think that that would be a class that, I don't know if you have to have hands on the person's body, but I think that would be a really nice online class for a lot of people.
yeah, someone asked me to, too already, so maybe I should. I kind of wanted to do a bit of this just to explore it because I haven't done this purely this way. It's just been random things that have shown up from vocal master classes I gave or something here and there, and kind of realizing what my strengths and passions were with that.
Yeah.
Like regular technique is not my passion as much as that, like finding the true voice and really breathing and making sound in your body, and like that experience of really feeling it, and how that affects so many aspects of your life,
Yeah.
so many aspects. So yeah, I think that might be one of the things that's next. It's yeah, because it's such a, like the way you were talking about your book, it's one of those things that applies to so many different facets of life. Like I learned some things from singing courses about breathing that just to like help me to express in my life in general and feel my body, be in my body in a different way than I ever was before. And that just didn't apply to singing, but it started to just change my singing, morph it so much, but also other aspects of life, and so, yeah, the beauty of how that all intertwines, of just coming into our true voice, really breathing and giving breath and life to our body and saying, yes, I really want to live. I don't just want to like survive. I want to live. And the breath is life, right? You
Yeah.
need the breath to live.
Before we go, I just have to show you somebody who you would appreciate. You probably don't know of him. His name is Dwight Tribble. And I just want to share this with you because of what you're saying. um, I mean, if anybody does that, he definitely does. Let's see. Let me move ahead. Oh, that's not live. Let me find a live one.
Tribble. That's a cool name.
I know, isn't it? Let's see if he does it.
They sent some healing vibration.
Let's see. Oh, here, this is probably good. I can see him.
Yeah.
He's all,
Riding the sound like an ocean wave, right? Like,
yeah. It's really, really cool. Yeah, I just wanted to share that with you because I thought
where's he based out of?
LA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he also runs something called the World Stage, which is it's an old place that's been here a long, long time. That was started by a drummer named Billy Higgins, who was a very famous jazz drummer. And yeah, but Dwight, he's a really good soul, very spiritual, and yeah, this whole thing. He opens his mouth and he really uses his body and takes this breath, and the sound is really connective. He's very improvisational as well, but he does sing particular songs. But yeah, very interesting.
That reminds me of too, actually, just seeing Kurt Elling perform live once. He was like, he just had like his chest was almost going to break open. He had opened it so much, and just that openness,
Yeah.
like I instantly was like, I got information from that. I was like, okay, like I could feel it. That's how I learn things, is a lot by feeling it and sensing it somehow versus just, book knowledge. Like it really, And that moment, something just hit me like, yeah. And then I could translate that into my own body. And I started, opening up in a different way and seeing how it felt in his body, or feeling how it felt in his body. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very cool to do that. One
Yeah.
time I was teaching in Idlewild for a year, and I was teaching in somebody else's space because it was, it's a school, it's a private school, and so I would stay there a few days a week. But anyway, I was teaching in this other person's space, so there was a book on something called The Great Singers, and it was all different. Each chapter was a different successful classical singer. They all had different vocal techniques.
Hmm.
I mean, the voice works how it works, the body works in a particular way. But as far as understanding and utilizing it, everybody had a different thing that they did, which I had experienced in teaching, clinics at universities. We had mixed clinics of classical and jazz singers, and
Hmm.
the teachers all saw the same thing on stage, but talked about it differently.
Mhm.
And it was kind of fascinating, that way. But yeah, again, like you said before, it's really a personal journey of discovery and experimentation. You have to be brave enough, have faith. You have to be committed. If this is your path, you have to go down that path and find out how you walk on the path, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, the life itself as your artistic creation. Like
Yes.
then it
This
becomes that. It's like, wow,
yeah.
how you are.
Thanks so much, Nancy. It was really a fun conversation. Thank
Yeah, super lovely. It's so nice to get to know you even better actually this
you.
way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. That's why I love this.
Yeah, what a great idea.
Yeah. So Arnie had been here. Thanks, Arnie. So glad to have you on. We should have you on too. I'd love to do that.
Oh yeah.
A nice
There you go.
person. I actually tried to have Connie Olson on, but it didn't work. I don't know. The times kind of got messed up, and yeah, because you're only 2 hours ahead of us, right? Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, sometime we will do that too. So
Oh,
thanks so
wonderful.
much. I'll let you go, and I'm just going to say a few more words about what's coming up, and unless you want to hang out, whatever you want, you can either push end or you can listen to me babble a little bit.
Oh, I'll just go out. I can listen to it. I'll go on Facebook
Okay.
and see.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
bye-bye. How lovely. Have a
Yeah,
good week.
thank you, Nancy.
Thanks to all who joined too.
All right. So what I'm going to say is tomorrow's live guest is Eldad Tarmu. He's a really wonderful musician. He's a vibes player. He lived in LA for a while and really musical. Beautiful, beautiful. So that's tomorrow. Then going to put on some archives, and I'm actually going to France on Friday for 2 weeks. Now, the first week, I'm going for a creative workshop, Roland, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's with Vinx, who some of you saw Vinx, and some of you know Vinx. He's a singer, writer. He moved to France a while ago, and this he has an annual workshop, creative workshop, for 2 weeks. So I'm going for the first week. I'm really looking forward to it. What's there not to, Southern France, a creative workshop with my friend who's really creative, staying in this French, like big home with great food and wine. You know what I mean? It's not it's not something you go, nah, I don't want to do that. So, and then I figured as long as I was relatively close to Paris, I should probably go to Paris, right? So, convinced my husband to meet me in Paris, and we're going to Paris for a week. So now what I have planned for y'all is archives every day. So 12 to 2, my time. Pacific time. People will be on. I have a whole bunch of wonderful people coming, from the archives. Adam Levy, Moira Smiley, Bevan Manson, Allison Wedding, Zvonimir Todd, Ferenc Nemeth, Doug Webb, Laurie Bell, Matt Gordy, Phil DeGry, Satina Donato, Mike Steffens, Nudu Duzo, Mak Hathini, African, Maria Mendez, Ron Newman, Jocelyn Medina, Adrian Duncan, Luther Hughes, Michael Barsamonto, Vince Mendoza. And I'm thinking that I will probably do some live interviews from France. Now, I'm not sure what time I'll do them, but I'll post them if they're at weird times. Yes, Joyce, I am going to do that. And I'm really planning on seeing some French musicians who I have befriended in the last month. And yeah. Oh, yeah, Arnie, I know, Dwight Tribble. Nice, very interesting, right? He's a pretty cool guy. I'll put the name Dwight Tribble. He's a pretty amazing guy. Very, very creative. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Nancy Harms. I'll see you tomorrow for a live interview, Eldad Tarmu, and then we'll just have a great time, enjoying life and enjoying our creations. Thank you.